I was saying, y'all, your boy Rico from StreetScores. An elite edge rusher, Trey Hendrickson of the Cincinnati Bengals, has been allowed to seek a trade, and you know the Commanders are all over it. I thought they were even before Jordan Schultz went out and said Washington wants to trade for NFL sack leader edge rusher Trey Hendrickson. One of the teams is already interested, reportedly, according to sources. And you know me, man, so we got to dive into how great Trey Hendrickson actually is. We got to talk about, are the Commanders most likely to trade for him? Who are other teams that are potentially interested, and how interested are they? Are the Commanders most likely? Also, what are the trade costs, draft pick value wise? What is the contract cost, money value after you trade for him? And of course, we also got to talk about how the Washington Commanders have called the Browns about Myles Garrett as well. We're going to dive into all of that and more in this video, and also have a fun fact for you for the end of this video as well, so make sure you stay tuned for that. And before we dive into everything, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content. Again, your one-stop shop for everything Commanders. I was working on another video, and then this news came out of nowhere. So maybe later on tonight, I'll release that video as well. And I'm almost done working on my post Deebo Samuel trade mock draft and all of that type of stuff. So be on the lookout for that eventually as well. Without further ado, let's go and dive into this video right now, man. Let's get it. Adam. All right, so first up, what is going on? Well, apparently, as of like 3 p.m. today, the Bengals have given all-pro edge rusher Trey Hendrickson permission to seek a trade per Adam Schefter. Cincinnati's leading pass rusher is on the way out. Adam Schefter tweeted at 3:16 p.m. The Bengals, and I've literally been working on this video since then. Ever since that, I stopped everything I was doing, been working on this video just to kind of give you an idea of how long it takes me to do videos. I'm talking right now at 4:59 p.m. You know me, man. I got to get all of my stats together. I got to get as much information together as possible. You know, I may not normally be first, but y'all know when y'all come here, y'all going to learn everything you need to know. But the Bengals have taken the rare step of granting all-pro defensive end Trey Hendrickson permission to seek a trade. It's been an honor and privilege to represent Cincinnati over the last 4 years, said Hendrickson, the NFL sack leader from last year. I love this city and organization. I appreciate the privilege of now being allowed to explore my options. And Hendrickson, at 30 years old, was selected with the 103rd overall pick by the Saints out of Florida Atlantic in 2017. He finished his 4-year rookie contract worth $3 million, which included a signing bonus of only $700,000. Hendrickson then signed for a 4-year, $60 million contract with the Bengals back in 2021 and went on to appear in the Super Bowl for the team. Cincinnati signed him to a 1-year extension through 2025 back in 2023. And shouts out to Deanna Rossini, because she reported days ago, if the Bengals can't get deals done with all 3 players, we're talking about Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, it's Trey Hendrickson that is most likely that's going to end up being the odd man out. And then we got the news today, and Deanna Rossini tweeted, Jamar Chase and the Bengals remain far apart in contract discussions. T. Higgins has been franchise tagged for a 2nd straight year. And Saturday, she wrote about how Trey Hendrickson, again, would be the guy that's the odd man out if there ever comes to it to where they have to pick one of these guys got to leave. Apparently it's Trey Hendrickson, as we can see. And then Ian Rappaport let everybody know that Bengals star Trey Hendrickson met with the Bengals brass earlier today and then officially received permission to find a trade partner as the team turns its attention to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Would also leave Cincy with a significant hole on defense, and it would. Their defense was, their whole game plan was, we got to score like 40-something points a game just to have a chance of winning. Joe Burrow and those guys were out there balling out, but the defense, even with Trey Hendrickson leading the NFL in sacks, that defense still was not getting enough done. And then Mina comes with a funny tweet. She asked, so the plan is to win every game 40-37 this upcoming season? That's pretty much how they were doing it last year. Now, after potentially trading away Trey Hendrickson, it's going to get even worse. And then Sam Hubbard retired too? Hoo-wee. And so, at my sports update, said the Bengals have prioritized deals for Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. That's literally what they've done, leaving Trey Hendrickson somewhat on an island. While there have been negotiations, they've been far apart, And saying that they've been far apart has been an understatement. So the Bengals have been trying to lowball Trey Hendrickson by a wide margin. There's no hope of getting an extension done there. That's why I feel like this trade is inevitable, and it may even happen soon. And shouts out to @SharpFootball, because he brings up a great point, and I thought of this immediately. I'm looking like, how are the Eagles constantly paying all of their guys big time money, and then you have the Bengals out here, they can't even seem to re-sign their 3 great players? Well, I guess you can include Joe Burrow in there with 4, but he brings up a point. The Bengals and Eagles both signed their quarterback ones to extensions in 2023. But since then, the Bengals have only re-signed 1 contract over $40 million, and that was Logan Wilson, while the Eagles have re-signed 8 contracts over $40 million with A.J. Brown, Landon Dickerson, Lane Johnson, Devonta Smith, Jordan Mailata, Zach Bond, Darius Slay, and Saquon Barkley. So I'm not gonna lie, I have no idea what the Bengals are doing with their money compared to what the Eagles are doing with theirs. But hey, man, not my problem. We're the Commanders over here. But Bengals, y'all better figure something out, because that's crazy. And then shouts out to Jeremy Fowler, because the Bengals made efforts to extend Trey Hendrickson in recent weeks, but the player did not consider those efforts commensurate with the pass rush market and his place in it. Again, they're trying to lowball him just off of the fact that they're trying to save a lot of money to make sure they can pay T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. Those are the priorities. Trey Hendrickson was, I wouldn't say an afterthought, but he wasn't as much of a priority as those other 2 guys or even Joe Burrow. And so now Trey Hendrickson is like, yeah, I'm out. And then the Bengals are like, well, we tried for like the past year or 2, and we're not seeing anywhere near close to eye to eye. We'll let you go ahead and seek a trade. We'll see what we can get in return, free up some cap space to make sure we can definitely sign Jamar Chase and T. Higgins to long-term deals. That way they don't have to potentially franchise tag T. Higgins for a 3rd straight year going into 2026. But now, why are the Bengals trading them in the first place? Again, I've been saying for months that they will not be able to keep all 3 of those stars due to all of that money that each of those guys want. Between Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, who just got tagged, and now Trey Hendrickson, who has 1 year left in his deal, somebody had to get up out of there. I've been saying this for weeks. And so now, I also want to point out the fact that shouts out to @FrontOfficeNFL, because the only reigning sack leader to ever be traded the following season, immediately after he led the NFL in sacks, was Hall of Famer Jared Allen. Allen was traded to the Vikings in 2008 after leading the NFL with 15.5 sacks for the Chiefs in 2007. That's crazy. That's the only time that's ever happened. Trey Hendrickson would literally be the 2nd. And hey, Bengals, hey, it's a great draft to get an edge rusher in the 1st round. This is the best time that if you wanted to trade away Trey Hendrickson, even if it's kind of against your will, you don't necessarily want to, but you kind of have to, this is the best draft class to do it in a long time. So that's another reason why I definitely see this trade happening, and I see it happening very soon, so they could already have their cap space in order going into the free agency period that, technically the legal tampering period starts Monday, and then everything will become official when the new league year starts March 12th on Wednesday. But yeah, man, again, Trey Hendrickson traded, Sam Hubbard retiring. The Bengals, I put money on the fact that they're going edge rusher in the 1st round of this upcoming draft. And so now, are the Commanders most likely to land them? Well, the Commanders have been looking around and calling about edge rushers since the middle of last season, maybe even going back to last offseason. And now you can add Trey Hendrickson to the list for sure. Again, we have definitive reports from trustworthy sources on the situation. Again, we're going to dive into that later. But right now, the Commanders, after trading for Deebo Samuel and with Jonathan Allen still on the books, we are 5th in cap space behind the Cardinals with $64.2 million in cap space, right in front of the Vikings, Steelers, Cowboys, Jets, Rams, and it goes on and on and on. Just to let you know, it's the Patriots, Chargers, Raiders, Cardinals, and then there's us 5th. And out of all of the teams that are in the top 5, we made it the furthest in the postseason by far. So, I just feel like we have the best situation of we're one of the best teams in the NFL, and we have a ridiculous amount of cap space. So, I feel like we have the most optimism going forward out of the entire NFL. Of course, the Eagles feel very confident as well. I feel like we're right up there with them. But shouts out to Josh Taylor, because it brings up a good point. Washington should be all over this trade for Trey Hendrickson. He's not a free agent until 2026. Again, he has 1 year left on his deal. So, I'm assuming after you trade for him, you'll already have a deal in place. But just in case, if you really just can't do it or don't want to do it for some crazy reason, you don't necessarily have to. He can play on a 2025 deal. But I'm telling you right now, the team who trades for him, and if it's the Commanders, we more than likely will have a deal in place before the trade even goes through. You'll get the announcement of the Commanders have traded for Trey Hendrickson for such and such picks, and they have agreed to a contract extension of such and such money, this much guaranteed, this much annual, all that type of stuff will basically be within the same announcement, the same tweet, same article, all of that type of stuff. But we'll see where this goes. And then Nikki Javala even said, she tweeted on Twitter, Commanders, like basically quote tweeting the Adam Schefter announcement of Trey Hendrickson being given permission to seek a trade. So you have even Commanders reporters, insiders, people that know the Commanders as well as anybody else, even though Adam Peters and Dan Quinn run a really tight ship. Like, this is one of those franchises and the way that we're set up right now where even guys like John Kahn, Nikki Javala, and JP Finley don't have the answers. They make sure nobody outside of who needs to know knows anything. But you have Commanders reporters and insiders as close as it can get, like a Nikki Javala, that's saying, hey, Commanders, this is one of those guys y'all need. And remember, at Washington Today tweeted yesterday, Washington is not done making trades. And then he quote tweeted that with a little wink emoji because he was trying to let people know that, hey, this Trey Hendrickson thing may pop off soon, basically. And then even going back to November 1st of last year, 2024, the middle of the season before the trade deadline, Justin Mello did an article for the Draft Network, not a Commanders fan, not a Commanders reporter, completely neutral national analyst here, more so like a draft analyst guy, but he wrote an article saying the 3 teams that should trade for Trey Hendrickson. Again, this was back in November, and then we were one of the 3 teams. He had the Falcons, the Cardinals, and then he also has the Washington Commanders. He said the 6-2 Washington Commanders sit atop the NFC East. Again, we were only 6-2 at the time. This is before we went on that huge run, and I mean, of course, we had like a 3-game losing streak soon after this, but then we went all the way to the NFC Championship and exceeded so many different expectations. But they have the offensive rookie of the year candidate quarterback Jaden Daniels to thank. He won it, and he has some MVP votes as well. Daniels has completely transformed this franchise, immediately removing them from the basement of the NFL and turning them into instant playoff contenders. How about division round winners? Dan Quinn is a defense-first coach. Both his current starting edge rushers, Dante Fowler Jr. and Dorrance Armstrong, are players he coached with the Dallas Cowboys. Fowler Jr. and Armstrong are fine players, but a truly elite talent like Hendrickson would elevate this group to new heights. I agree. I agreed back then, and I agree firmly right now still. And we don't even have Dante Fowler under contract right now, so technically we need Trey Hendrickson even more now than you would assume, at least since back in November last year. The Commanders are scheduled to possess $121.4 million in cap space this summer. Now, it's gone down since then with all of the moves that we made and things have changed. We'll see, though. Again, we're still 5th at least in cap space. General Manager Adam Peters can afford to go shopping with Daniels on a rookie deal for the foreseeable future. I completely agree. Now is the time. You have an elite quarterback on a rookie deal. Get it done. And then Josh Norris, completely neutral analyst as well, not a Commanders fan nor a Commanders reporter. He pointed out the fact that on Twitter, the Cardinals have $74 million in effective cap space. The Commanders have $58 million in effective cap space. Literally quote tweeted, Bengals grant edge rusher Trey Hendrickson permission to seek a trade. And that's all he said. Basically saying the Commanders and the Cardinals, y'all should be the 2 teams that are fighting over him. Well, how about we go ahead and trade or cut Jonathan Allen and then use that money towards a new Trey Hendrickson contract, which is like, I mean, double what it would cost to get rid of Jonathan Allen. Like, if you get rid of Jonathan Allen, trade or release, you'll save like $16.3 million. It's probably going to cost you like $30 million to, give Trey Hendrickson the deal that he wants on a per year basis. But the main reason that I'm bringing this up right now is because moving Jonathan Allen gives you just enough, makes enough of a difference in cap space to where we pass that very same Arizona Cardinals team in cap space, and we have the 4th most cap space in the NFL, who again Josh Norris sees as our main cap space competitor in terms of arm race to get Trey Hendrickson right now. And then shouts out to Mark Bullock. He said, wonder what the price would be. Have to imagine the Commanders would have interest, and oh, we do. Lo and behold, not even 5 minutes later, Jordan Schultz, the Starbucks accoster himself, tweeted, sources, Bengals All-Pro Trey Hendrickson traveled today to Cincinnati and met with the members of the organization and made it clear he'd be appreciative if they grant him permission to seek a trade, which they finally did after 2 years of failed negotiations. 2 years of failed negotiations? Golly, they couldn't get nowhere since then. But then he finished it up by saying the Commanders are among several teams who would be interested in trading for him per sources. So why did he go and point out the Commanders specifically in that tweet? He could have listed more teams, or he could have just kept it, sweet, short, simple. Several teams are interested. He said the Commanders and several other teams are interested. Like, why did you isolate us in that situation? I'm just saying, where there's smoke, there's fire. And then Trey Hendrickson is another one that, I think he just makes too much sense to not happen. The same way I feel about this Trey Hendrickson trade potentially is the same way I felt about us potentially trading for Marshawn Lattimore before there were even rumors out there about it. The fit just made too much sense with Marshawn Lattimore being tired of the Saints. He wants to go to a contender. Like, everything just added up to where Marshawn Lattimore to the Commanders being traded before the trade deadline made too much sense. And then it happened. And then the same thing with the Deebo Samuel trade. I've been saying for weeks that it made way too much sense for the Commanders to end up with either Deebo Samuel or Cooper Kupp, one of them, with Deebo Samuel being the most likely. And then I have that same exact feeling leading up to both of those trades that I do with this one. So again, I don't necessarily have any inside source on the situation, but I have that same exact feeling. It makes too much sense for both sides. We have the cap space, we have the Super Bowl contender, all of that. And then the Bengals, hey man, we got some draft picks for you. They're trying to get rid of them because they're trying to pay T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. It just makes too much sense for all parties involved. We got the money for you, Trey Hendrickson. We got the draft picks, draft capital, whatever you need. Bengals, we have the cap space to pay, all of that type of stuff. And we have this severe need for an edge rusher. Even if you do re-sign Dante Fowler to like a nice cheap 1-year deal, you still need to prioritize edge rusher as arguably your biggest need this entire offseason for agency and draft. And don't forget that Trey Hendrickson has some amazing things to say about Dan Quinn. It was either right before or right after that Bengals game last year. And that was before we went on to win 14 games, including an NFC Championship appearance led by a top 5 quarterback in the NFL in Jaden Daniels. Back when we played the Bengals, nobody necessarily knew that Jaden Daniels would be a top 5 quarterback already. Remember, that was like week 3 of the regular season. Imagine how Trey Hendrickson views the Commanders now and how excited he would be to join us right now. I mean, I'm pretty sure Jaden Daniels, Deebo Samuel, all of these guys are recruiting right now. And now we also got to talk about the fact we got to be realistic. Other teams are potentially interested. Phil Yates brings up a good point. Trey Hendrickson has played for 2 defensive coordinators in his career. Dennis Allen from 2017 to 2020 and Lou Anarumo back in 2021 through 2024 with the Bengals. Now, he said this isn't to say that Hendrickson would need to play for a former coach, but the 2 that know him well are now in Chicago and in Indianapolis, just to let you know. So maybe those are 2 teams right there that are 2 fits, just specifically off of the fact that they've already coached this guy, and maybe they're banging on the table to please trade my guy that I've had experience with to the team that I'm currently at. And then you also even have Jordan Schultz, who just straight up and said, came out like a couple of minutes later after he tweeted about us being one of the teams interested. He singled out the Falcons as well. He said the Falcons, just like the Commanders, when he wanted to make sure he emphasized, hey, don't forget the Commanders here. But he said the Falcons, like the Commanders, also have been monitoring the Trey Hendrickson situation. With this trade request now official, more teams are getting involved in the Bengals all-pro defensive end. Now let's talk about trade cost, and that's pretty important here. So shouts out to my boy Serge the Shooter, just throwing stuff out there. He said, how about a next year's second, 2026 second, which is more valuable than this year's second? You can argue that's why a lot of teams right now are trading for 2026 draft picks. Did you see that trade between the Rams and the Bears? I don't think people noticed that was a 2026 pick, not a 2025 one. A lot of people view that 2026 draft as a far more talented draft than this one coming up in this upcoming April 2025 draft. So that's why Serge the Shooter said maybe next year second, maybe that'll entice the Bengals just a little bit more, add a little bit more spice to it. And then how about you throw Jonathan Allen in there as well? And then he said just hang up the phone and pray. Now, of course, he's probably joking some, and I also highly doubt it as well. I mean, I would love it, but there's just no way the Bengals trade away Trey Hendrickson because of money issues and then turn around and relieve the Commanders of our money issues with trading for Jonathan Allen to give us $16.3 million in additional cap space. I would cry if that somehow happened. I just highly doubt it does. How about Josh Taylor? He said his gut says that a 3rd round pick gets it done because of the fact that Trey Hendrickson is 30 years old and he's going to cost you a lot of money. That has to be taken into account when it comes to trade negotiations. If you're the Commanders, you're like, yeah, we really want the guy. He's elite. He led the NFL in sacks last year, but he's 30. I mean, you could say maybe he's still in his prime, but he won't be in it for necessarily very long. He's already going into his 3rd contract since he's hit the NFL. And again, he's going to cost a lot of money. And whatever price tag he's asking for per year is going to be accounted for in the contract negotiations for what draft pick we're willing to give up. If he was coming cheap, if he was willing to take like a $20-something million per year deal, then maybe we would have to give up more draft capital. But just already knowing that he's probably going to cost you like $30 million annually, especially after that Max Crosby contract that he just got a couple of days ago. We're going to get to that too, though. We're still right now talking about trade costs, but the actual money cost behind it plays a part in the trade cost. That's why we're going to talk about the money cost next after a few more trade cost scenarios. Shouts out to Mason Kinahan. He said it would be awesome trading for Trey Hendrickson, but I'd imagine it'd be at least like multiple day 2 picks to get it done. Washington only has 1 second and 1 third round pick this year, and their next pick isn't until 206th overall. It would be hard to get a trade done unless it included 2026 picks, and hey, throw them in there if you got to. Brian Burns, just to let you know, history shows when Brian Burns got traded to the Giants, he went for 39th overall, plus a 5th rounder. That's a 2nd rounder, a relatively high 2nd rounder, and a 5th rounder. And then he signed for $88 million guaranteed right afterwards. Trey Hendrickson has been the better player. But at the same time, Brian Burns is only 26 years old. He was traded at 25 years old, whereas Trey Hendrickson is 30 years old right now. So there's a 5-year difference in when these two guys were, in Trey Hendrickson's case, will end up getting traded. So I feel like that needs to play a part as well. Trey Hendrickson has been better, but he is older. And we're talking about 5 years older if you're comparing them to the Brian Burns trade. And then also, shouts out to Mason Kinahan for pointing this out. Here's 2 off-season trades for edge rushers that could be comparable to what a 30-year-old Trey Hendrickson would get. Remember, the Jets got 29-year-old Hassan Reddick, and they had to give up a conditional 3rd round pick, and which could become a 2nd round pick. Just straight up, that's it. How about the Chargers got 31 years old Khalil Mack, while the Bears in return got a 2nd and a 6th. You know, if that's a 2nd and a 6th, sign me up, please. I will trade for Trey Hendrickson right now. But again, we do got to emphasize the fact that 30-year-old, or technically last year 29-year-old Trey Hendrickson was better than 31-year-old Khalil Mack, at least statistically, even though Khalil Mack is a dog. I mean, Trey Hendrickson, they're in the same tier, but you would probably lean more towards Trey Hendrickson just off of how productive he's been, especially last year or the last 2 years. We're gonna dive into his stats later. When we're talking about why we're even having these discussions, why we're even talking about all of this, oh, you'll find out. That boy Trey Hendrickson, the truth now, just in case if some of y'all may be missing it. And then shouts out to Josh_Quapo. I hope that's how you pronounce that. My dog Colin Dunphy retweeted this. That's how I saw it. And he's a super stats guy. He's like even more stats based than I am. And so he said that after the max contract earlier today, this could be an early 2nd, maybe late 1st in compensation, plus a $30 million per year extension added to it after the trade happens. And hey, we have the 29th pick. That's a late 1st. We don't have an early 2nd, but we got a late 1st for you. All I know is he'll definitely be cheaper, both trade and money wise, than Myles Garrett would be, even if Myles Garrett becomes available. I mean, I think honestly Trey will be far cheaper trade wise than Myles Garrett, especially since the Bengals have their backs against the wall with the whole T. Higgins and Jamar Chase situation. It's clear that they're not trading Trey Hendrickson because they necessarily want to. It's kind of like they have to. Again, the Bengals' backs are against the wall, so we can kind of use that against them slightly in contract negotiations. Also, shouts out to my boy Jamal Elliott Martella. He said Washington is connected to Trey for a reason. Tried to tell y'all they are out on Myles. They are not waiting on Cleveland to quit BSing, and Trey is actually available. That's an important distinction right there, because but then again, there was a report like a few minutes after this whole Trey Hendrickson fiasco kicked off. There was a report from U Stadium that in addition to having interest into edge rusher Trey Hendrickson, the Commanders have also called the Browns regarding Myles Garrett. But I wouldn't be surprised if my boy Jamal is still at least somewhat right, because Myles Garrett calls are probably just check-ins, just to kind of get the temperature. Are y'all serious about not trading them? Okay, cool, hang up. Whereas Trey Hendrickson calls probably include, hey, we'll give you these draft picks. We're probably going back and forth with negotiations. Like, I'm sure that there's a difference. Yeah, the Commanders may be calling the Browns about Myles Garrett, but I don't think those calls are going the exact same way that these Trey Hendrickson calls are going with the Bengals right now. So I think my boy Jamal Martellett is still correct about that. Now let's talk about money calls. Well, 2 years ago, Hendrickson signed a 1-year extension to the original 4-year deal he signed with the Bengals in 2021, worth $60 million. In 2025, he is set to earn $15.8 million in base salary, along with a $200,000 roster bonus, and represent a cap hit of $18.7 million. Barely only a little bit more expensive than Deebo Samuel, which is crazy. Also, Max Crosby's contract rankings right now, among edge rusher contracts when he signed this deal, he was first in annual per year 35.5, practical guarantee he was third with 91.5 million. Guarantee at signing he had 62.5, which was fifth. Second year cash he was fourth with 64, and third year cash he was second with 93.8. But now looking towards the future, Hendrickson, now granted a request, also comes one day after Raiders defensive end Max Crosby. That was just yesterday. I feel like that was like days ago. Wow, I've been all over the place. Either way, though, this came the day after Raiders defensive end Max Crosby agreed to terms on a 3-year extension that pays him $35.5 million annually, which is the current record for a non-quarterback in NFL history, and Crosby ranks 7th in total sacks since 2021, whereas Trey Hendrickson has been easily more productive than even Max Crosby. So if Max Crosby's getting $35.5 million a year, I mean, some people are saying that maybe Trey Hendrickson deserves a little bit more than that. But again, you got to keep in mind Trey Hendrickson's age. And at the same time, Spot Track pointed out the fact that right now, if a new team were to trade for Trey Hendrickson, he would only have $16 million non-guaranteed against the cap. That's actually less than Deebo Samuel. That is crazy. And then the Bengals will actually have to take on like almost $3 million worth of dead cap, but they will ultimately save $16 million, which again, they will put towards the Jamar Chase and T. Higgins contracts. And Trey Hendrickson, with 36 sacks, 5 forced fumbles the past 2 seasons, projects towards a 2-year, $60 million extension in our deal. So basically, Spot Track, based off of their data and their history of looking at every contract ever, at least since they've been doing their thing, that they're expecting him to potentially come in, play for $16 million in 2025, and then go for like $30 million per year going forward in his contract extension. I'd do that. I would. So now, is it worth it? I do feel like it, but just in case if you're not convinced, first of all, the Browns, again, are holding Myles Garrett hostage for now. And I've been saying for months now that Trey Hendrickson was a more realistic trade option with all of the chaos that the Bengals have had going on with contract disputes and contract negotiations with all sorts of players. Remember, they had to let Jesse Bates leave just like a year or two ago. So even with as bad as I want Myles Garrett, my point is I nearly want Trey Hendrickson just as much as pure player. But most importantly, Trey Hendrickson is actually available, whereas Myles Garrett not necessarily. And then on top of that, Trey Hendrickson, again, 30 years old, but he's coming off of his best season to date in his NFL career. It's not like he's turning 30 and then there's like a slight decline that you're seeing in his play. If anything, he's literally gotten better and better and better. You can maybe even assume that he'll be even better next year in this 2025 upcoming season, because in 2024, just this past season, he led the NFL with 17.5 sacks and was selected a first-team All-Pro alongside wide receiver of the Bengals, Jamar Chase. And Hendrickson was the franchise's first All-Pro selection along with Jamar Chase dating back to 2015. He also reached the Pro Bowl for the 4th straight year. Now, going back to just his overall career between the Saints and the Bengals, 8 seasons, 110 games, very durable, we'll get there soon, 220 tackles, 71 tackles for loss, 155 quarterback hits, 77 sacks, 15 passes defense, 14 forced fumbles, 4-time Pro Bowler in a row. And again, just this past season was his first time being named an All-Pro. Again, he's coming off of his best season. And again, that season included 17.5 sacks, which was not only first in the NFL, but 3.5 more sacks than the next nearest guy who was in second place. He also was first in pressures with 92 out of the entire NFL. Like, y'all need to put some respect on this guy's name now. Now, I still prefer Myles Garrett, especially if we're talking about a guy that can run, defend, and set the edge and, you know, be dominant against the run along with also being dominant against the pass. Yeah, I prefer Myles Garrett straight up if they're both available, if they're both going for the same exact trade value, they're both going to cost you the same amount of money against the cap space. Of course, I prefer Myles Garrett. But again, for factors that have already been laid out where Myles Myles Garrett is not available, and Myles Garrett is going to cost you more money trade value-wise and draft pick-wise, and he's going to cost you more money contract-wise after you extend him compared to what you would have to pay Trey Hendrickson to extend him. Again, Spot Track is predicting $30 million a year for Trey Hendrickson. Myles Garrett is for sure going to go at least higher than what Max Crosby just got yesterday. But also, going back to Trey Hendrickson, he has led the NFL with 35 sacks over the last 2 seasons, which is, of course, Myles Garrett is included in that. Myles Garrett has less sacks than Trey Hendrickson over the past 2 years, and especially last season specifically. And also, Trey Hendrickson finished second this past season in Defensive Player of the Year running. Of course, he didn't win it, but he was right there in second place. Also, since signing with the Bengals, Hendrickson has been one of the NFL's best pass rushers. He ranks 3rd in pressure rate during that span, according to ESPN research, and is 3rd in total sacks, 57, since joining the Bengals, trailing only Myles Garrett and TJ Watt with 60, 58.5, and again, Trey Hendrickson at 57. However, his average annual salary ranks 11th among all edge rushers, so that's why he wants to get paid. He's tired of getting downplayed, where he's one of the 3 best edge rushers in the NFL at least, and he's getting paid not even in the top 10. Trey Hendrickson, since joining the Bengals in 2021, has 57 sacks, 3rd, like we just talked about. He has 299 pressures, 5th, 17.4 pressure rate, 2nd, 92.2 pass rush grade, 5th, again, since joining the Bengals back in 2021. And shouts out to Louis Riddick for this one. Trey Hendrickson, just 2024 specifically, 3rd in pressure percentage, 1st in sacks and sack percentage, of course, 3rd in pass rush win rate. Then if you just go back to 2023, 7th in pressure percentage, tied for 2nd in sacks, and number 1 in sack percentage, and 11th in pass rush win rate. Has not missed a single game the past 2 seasons. Hasn't missed a single game, a single start since the past 2 seasons. He played 72.5% of the Bengal snaps in 2024 and played 67.8% of the Bengal snaps in 2023. And Louis Riddick is upset. He's like, and that's the guy you're willing to trade away versus one of these receivers? And so my main reason of giving y'all those stats and that information is that this guy's also elite in the durability category as well. He's arguably the best pass rushing edge rusher in the NFL, at least statistically. And then also, he hasn't missed a game in 2 seasons. Come on, man. You know your best ability is your availability. Now, of course, he's not the best run defender in the NFL. Pro Football Focus feels like he's the 8th best overall edge rusher. They feel like he was the 5th best pass rushing edge rusher last year, according to their grading system. But they feel like he was 67th out of 211 gradable edge rushers in run defense grade last year. I don't think he's that bad. But of course, again, Myles Garrett, the reason he's the best edge rusher in the NFL is because not only is he a top 3 at least pass rusher, he's also a top 3 at least run stopper. Trey Hendrickson is not that level of run stopping. He's better than, you could argue, anything we had last year. He would still be an upgrade there, which is why I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get him, but he's not Myles Garrett exactly. But when we're talking about pass rushing, yes, he is. That guy has been going, I mean, since 2022, Pro Football Focus has given him at least a 90 pass rush grade. 2022, 2023, and 2024. And also, again, 2024, his highest overall grade Pro Football Focus is giving him out of his entire career. So if anything, again, he's only getting better. He's only improving as he goes on. And just based off of that trajectory, it seems like you may even get more out of him in 2025. Maybe he'll improve as an edge rusher this upcoming season and become not only just a good edge rusher as far as like stopping the run, setting the edge and things like that, but maybe he'll become dominant. He's already a dominant pass rusher. Now the next step is for him to become a dominant run stopper as well. And then shouts out to Seawall Sports. She said, so basically the Bengals chose T. Higgins over Trey Hendrickson. Is that what's happening here? And yes, that's basically what it is. Because we already know, we're assuming Jamar Chase they're going to figure that out at some point. Joe Burrow's already handled. So it's basically T. Higgins versus Trey Hendrickson, and they chose Trey Hendrickson. Also, I do want to point out the fact that Trey Hendrickson would be wearing his 91, his number 91 here, like Ryan Kerrigan used to do. And at the same time, we still have Ryan Kerrigan here as a pass rush specialist coach in the coaching staff. I feel like that just makes too much sense. It's too perfect. I think we should definitely make it happen for at least the look of it. You know what I'm saying? Going from 191 with a couple of years in between back to another 91, but this one's even better. I love Ryan Kerrigan, but Trey Hendrickson, Come on, man. And then also shouts out to Chris Russell because he put out a scenario. He said that the price for Trey Hendrickson is a first, third, and a sixth in 2025, along with a 4-year, $120 million extension, which is approximately what I think will be the cost. Would you make that for the Commanders as far as the trade? Would you be willing to do that? I think that's way more than what the Bengals are going to ask for as far as trade value in return. I think that's more than what Trey Hendrickson is going to get contract-wise, because I don't think he's going to sign for like an additional 4 years. I think he's going to probably sign for like a 2-3 year extension, and then maybe after that ends, he'll sign for like 1 year at a time after he's like 34 years old. I don't see him signing like an entire 4-year contract extension here. So now I want to move to Grant Paulson. He asks, would you trade a second rounder and maybe another draft pick to the Bengals for Trey Hendrickson, knowing you'd have to extend him at $30 million per year? Of course, I voted yes, and then out of 1,138 votes, 57.8% voted yes as well, while 42.2% voted no. So we're almost dead even, 50-50 here. Of course, let me know in the comment section how you feel about that scenario. Now, of course, I want y'all to let me know separately. Do you want Trey Hendrickson? Why? Why not? And then, based off of the trade scenario of Grant Paulson, second rounder, maybe another pick, and then you got to pay him $30 million per year, are you still willing to trade for Trey Hendrickson if that's what it would take? But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get a comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in the video. Please still follow that like button, still follow the subscription button, still follow the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. If you made it this far in the video, you are the GOAT. You know me, man. I know a lot of people like my long videos, but I know some people don't. I try to keep it short and to the point, but I just always have so many things to talk about, which is why it takes me so long to even get my information ready to record the video. Then recording the video takes long. Then editing the video takes long. It's 5:33 p.m. right now. But as promised, I have y'all the fun fact of the day. In 2022, the Commanders had 2 separate winning streaks of 3+ games in the same season for the first time since 2005. That is ugly. That is a terrible trivia question fun fact right there. I hope tomorrow's is better than that. That's depressing. It shouldn't have taken that long. From 2005 to 2022 is insane. But either way, really appreciate y'all. Make sure you do not leave this video out leaving a like. Again, if you made it this far in the video, salute to you. You are a GOAT as well. Oh, also, almost forgot, man. I almost forgot. I want to make sure I shout out everybody that donated to the Cash App within like the past month that I just never noticed. I haven't been live streaming, so I didn't even know. Shouts out to Monroe Parker for the donation. Appreciate that. Shouts out to Christopher Gomer for the donation as well. Shouts out to Dr. Reggie Austin for the donation. Of course, appreciate that. And shouts out to my boy Scotty as well. Hey, Scotty. Shouts out to all of y'all for donating. I haven't been live streaming, and y'all are still donating to the Cash App. Man, y'all are the GOATs. I really appreciate y'all. So big love to y'all, man. Gotta clap that up. Big salute. Really appreciate y'all again. Make sure you leave a like on the way out. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.